I was told to hop on and make sure everybody was here. It looks like everybody's here.
Uh-oh.
You guys need me for anything
Would somebody
else?
have gotten in trouble if they didn't?
No, I would have just called them and made sure that they were.
Oh.
I see what's happened here. I see what's happened here. Monique has delegated responsibility.
I asked her, how can I help you? And she was like,
Yeah, don't do
I have
that.
a project for you.
Don't do that. She will assign you stuff.
So I'm just going to tell everybody this. Like, if I sound stressed out when I get home, like I was on a trip the other day and she called me and I'm talking to her and she said, "You sound stressed." And I said, "No, I'm fine. I might be a little tired." I come home to like a care package to tell me to not be so stressed out. I was like, this is legit.
What was in the care package?
Oregano oil, a nice calendar. It was very sweet. It was very sweet.
No gummies?
Hey, by the way, I'm just going to tell you, the oregano oil, like, it means
You sure
two
it was
drops.
oregano?
Yes, I'm sure. It means 2 drops, not 2 dropperfuls. You will have a bad time at 2 dropperfuls. Okay, I'm just going to put that.
Lucas, this is a theme. So I send Lucas some medicine, and it's supposed to be dosed at 5 milligrams a day.
David, go ahead and tell him what the
he-
medicine was.
It doesn't matter.
It's
And so
okay at this point. Mandy's going to be like, "Oh, my God." Oh, did he lock up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that is
perfect.
priceless. That
Take a
is
screenshot.
Last time you thought
Windows
talking
Shift
last
S.
episode,
Bet.
He just locked up.
If you ever want to see me take like the Whole Foods all natural medicine, I did a drink once and I recorded it and put it on Instagram. It's like my most liked video. It's
Really?
just, like trying to keep it down.
Kind of like the cinnamon challenge?
Kind of, but with oregano oil.
Oh my God. Dude, that stuff is no joke. Like, so I drink it and I'm like, holy crap. Like, my lips are burning. I wonder why that is. And then I'm like, the inside of my mouth is burning. And then I'm like, my esophagus is burning. Oh, everything is burning.
Soon everything will be burning.
We take the trust of our listeners very seriously, and I hope that you know that when I say that Shop-Ware is the best automotive shop management system, I believe it in my heart of hearts. And now it's even better. With new features like Tech App, it streamlines the inspection and dispatching process for you and your technicians. And with massive improvements to Shop-Ware's exclusive digital vehicle experience, they have stepped their game up to a whole new level. So if you haven't scheduled a demo yet, click the link in the show notes and do it today. If you've already had a demo and you were waiting to finally switch, there has never been a better time. So click that link and get started today. It's rough. It's rough. So since David is not here, Mandy, you are now our shop management professional. Okay.
Like the grumpy curmudgeon.
Yes.
Yeah. My spirit animal. Yes. Like David says everything I want to say, but never actually do. I'm like comment.
He's back. Oh, man.
Yay.
What happened,
Grumpy cat.
David?
Did I freeze or did you guys freeze? I froze. I'm like,
Yeah, it was pretty good.
anyway.
It was very good timing. Poor Thomas does not know what he's gotten himself into. I can see by his facial expression, he had no clue this is what was going to happen. He's like, man, this is going to be a professional production. And then here we
This is what he
come.
walks into.
Been on a couple podcasts and they do not go like this, so I'm very
buddy.
intrigued.
We've not even
Oh,
started yet.
he didn't do any homework. Yes. This is great. Anyway, so let's go back to the erectile dysfunction medicine. So I send some medicine to Lucas, and it's
not for that,
their
okay?
boner drops, right? And here's the thing: you take 5 milligrams, and that's all you're supposed to take is 5 milligrams because it doesn't fix anything. It just keeps the blood flowing. And he decides he's just going to take the whole droplet.
I looked it up online.
The whole
and it
droplet,
said
which
you're
is like,
supposed to,
which is what an 80-year-old man who wants to get his cardio on at the nursing home, that's what he would take. And then Lucas looks over at me. This is a month after, and I'm like, "Hey, I do." Like that? He looks over at me, and I'm like, "Hey, are you taking the medicine?" And he's like, "No, it gave me a headache." Like, how much are you taking? He's like, "I don't know, the whole droplet." I'm like, "No, you took way too much."
Well, I'm just going to tell you, there is no getting your cardio on after taking a full droplet of that stuff because your head is going to hurt so bad you can't. Like, I promise you're not going to think anything about that.
You're not 80 years old, Lucas. That's why. That's why you take 5 milligrams.
Look, man, I ain't trying to be like you and my feet and legs swelling up because I'm taking some kind of crazy injection and stuff.
I got full-blown edema at this point. It's pretty bad.
I mean, like, is it really worth this? David
I was good until you wake up with your hands numb because the water retention pushes on nerves in your arms and your arms go numb. That's the only.
I don't know that I want to be that healthy. I'm just going to point that out.
I've gone past healthy. You go up to the health point and then you just go, I can keep going. Let's see what happens. And you just blow right past it. At this point, you're just taking one medication to counteract another medication and just let's see what.
Could we talk about mental health? Maybe now that the physical health is under control, could we work on mental health here a little bit?
You do all this to block all that out. You don't want to mess with that.
Yeah. Push it down. Push it way down.
Suppress that.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, this was the podcast. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you being here.
So this is what happens. This is what happens at my shop, which is why we don't get anything done. So the idea of this podcast is for you guys to, not Lucas, but everybody else, fix the workflow in my shop. There you go. This is all like
an example of what not to do.
This is very self-centered. Yes. I want to get my shop workflow fixed.
Yes.
This isn't going well. Who said me too? Oh, Jake. Well, okay.
That's a little bit different, though. Jake is in a new phase of business ownership at this point.
Yeah,
so everything's been turned on its head.
Yeah, you expanding into a new shop, right?
Yeah, we went from 3 bays to I have the opportunity to have 21 right now.
Wow.
Let's go.
That was Jake. That might have been stupid. Okay. I'm just going to tell you.
It definitely was, but some of the best parts of my life came from stupid decisions, right?
Hold on. You didn't build a giant red barn on top of family land for millions of dollars, and you're like, hey, let's put heated floors in and giant 25-foot tall bay doors that are resistant to 100-mile-an-hour winds. Did you do all that nonsense?
120-mile-an-hour winds.
120 miles an hour.
No, I bought a defunct foundry with broken windows and a leaking roof. So
Jake owns the sexiest building award of anybody, right? Like the interior of that building is badass. I mean, it really is. It is a beautiful building.
There's some nice wood ceilings and there's a brick everywhere, so it's got character.
Who's buzzing? Yeah, Somebody's buzzing.
That's me.
It's you, David.
It's my wife.
Oh,
I wouldn't answer that right now.
Nope. It's the kids are having lunch right now, and they always FaceTime me at lunchtime.
Oh, that's
we eat lunch
cute.
together, right? So
that is cute.
So we've ruined it. We've ruined it. Is
totally.
What you're telling.
Yep, they're going to
be
mad
mad
at
used
you.
to that by now. All right. In all seriousness, now we're going to talk about shop workflow, and so it's really a timely conversation for me right now because what's been happening over the past couple of months is I brought a manager in, and I realized something when I brought this manager in that I had managed all of the workflow for this facility in here and in here, right? And it was all about
you were pointing too high, Lucas. You need to go deep down. Where were you getting this workflow from? Way down here is where I was pulling this out of.
Boys, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. I mean, this is what was somehow we've caught him in rare form. Okay, but I don't know what medication he took this morning. We're just gonna tough it out. Okay.
So hey, I will tell you. I tried this new pre-workout, and it's called Souls for Sale. I am a stem junkie. Caffeine does not affect me. So I can take a lot of caffeine and I will fall asleep like 5 minutes after because it just doesn't affect me. I don't know what they put in this thing, but holy crap. You are wired.
Before a podcast next time.
Well, I normally don't take it. I took it once and I'm like, let's try it one more time and make sure that this wasn't a one-off. No, it's not. It gives me the jitters. And it's not overly caffeinated. It's got about 350 milligrams, which is, it's a lot, but not that much. They put something else in there. I don't know what's in. I got to go through the ingredient list, and there's something in there that they don't put in anything else. Because, oh man, you will be wired for about 4 hours and then crash like normal.
Did you happen to buy this from a man on a street corner? I mean, that's just
I bought it on as a pre-sale. They're like, this is ridiculously overdosed. Buy it. And I'm like, okay. I have like 16 bottles of pre-workout at home. I try all sorts of different kinds. Sorry. Souls for sale. Grapefruit flavored. Souls for sale. That's what it's called.
That's the name of it. Souls for sale.
Yeah. Souls for sale. Condemned Labs is who made it.
Because I'm a caffeine junkie too. I love I use Total War. That's my favorite. But I'll give that one a try.
Who makes that? Redcon?
Yeah, Redcon.
Yeah. I haven't tried that one yet.
That's a top notch one.
Does that one hit you hard?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I like
when you'll get like the tingliness in your ears.
Oh, that's the beta alanine. That's the good stuff there. The itchy butthole. That's it's a chemical. God. They put it in there to give you like these tingles. And some people, it doesn't give me any itchiness, but some people it gives them itchy butthole.
I don't even like. I don't.
It's true.
What has happened?
You asked. I don't know what's wrong with there. I wanted to explain. That's all.
Okay. I appreciate the explanation.
I took some pre-workout.
As I was saying, I hired a manager and I realized that my workflow process was solely in my head. And that didn't work out so well when I hired a manager who came from a dealer, because it turns out dealers are giant disasters. Okay. I'm just going to put that out there. And so we put him in the Institute's coaching group for managers, and we're putting into place dualistic scheduling in the shop right now. And it has turned things on its head. So I'm really excited to hear about some of the things that you guys are doing in your shops and how you're doing it. But first, let's go around the room and introduce everybody. Brandon, go ahead and introduce yourself, brother.
My name's Brandon Ballou. I run Trustworthy Auto in Seekonk, Massachusetts. I've been the manager for about 5 years. We're a smaller shop. Currently have 2 technicians, need to get back up to 4. I have an advisor, and that's our shop.
Nice. Thomas, introduce yourself, dude.
Yeah, my name's Thomas Andrews. I'm a partner at CDT Automotive, and then we also have Select Auto Pros. We have a single store for each brand. CDT Automotive is our flagship store. It's a single large shop, and then Select Auto Pros is a 10-bay shop that we just purchased in Sanford, North Carolina. So that's our next venture. And so the goal or vision is to have both brands, multiple locations in both brands, and then also I'm a coach for ShopFix Academy.
I'm just going to say, like, all of our feelings are hurt because you don't come to any of our events and you don't come hang out with us. Mike Allen has personally complained about it no fewer than 10 times at this point, right? And
I will be at ASTA.
Nice.
And then I'll come see you in Boone, man. I'm in Boone all the time.
Very cool.
So
awesome. I'd love for you to come by. Yeah, for sure.
I've seen your shop like a bunch, but never been in it.
He doesn't mean that. He doesn't mean that. He doesn't really want you to stop by.
I do. I'm not like you. I'm not a terrible curmudgeon. I mean, for you and Dutch to argue as much as you do, you two are just a lot.
You guys need to ask Monique. I ducked out on her one time. She tried to visit me. I just left.
He did.
He's
not even joking.
I just left. That's how much I avoid people. I'm like, who's coming by? I don't know. Somebody from Shop-Ware. I'm like, I'm not gonna be there. I'm sorry. It was Monique. She left me a T-shirt.
He didn't even feel bad. That's how awful.
I don't. I tell people, don't visit me. I don't want to see you. Sorry. Send me a
Jake,
text.
I don't know that I need to introduce you. I mean, I think that at this point you could just be the third host.
Jake's been on the
but
podcast several times.
I
Yeah,
bought all this expensive equipment, so I might as well, right?
yeah, we
right,
should make him a
exactly.
regular.
But I mean, you might as well go ahead and explain who you are just in case.
Absolutely. I'm Jacob Wierengo. I own a shop in Muskegon, Michigan. We're growing, as I already mentioned, but I do all the management and workflow here. And just like Lucas, a lot of the stuff was in my head. And as we grow, I'm realizing that I need processes and procedures, and I need to lean on the software in order to have an effective workflow.
Amen, buddy. Amen. And I'm just going to point out to everybody listening, the only reason he's on this show is because he has very sweet parents. Okay. He's not the person in the family that we care for. It's really his parents that we like. And so we just do it to be nice to his mom and dad. Just putting that out there. Brett, introduce yourself.
Yeah. Hi, Brett Hunziker here from Grand Prairie, Alberta, Canada. Way up over there. So shop City Center Automotive. It's a roughly 10-bay shop running. Currently, we've got about between 6 and 7 technicians. One guy's injured. New shop owner as of June 2023. Purchased the shop as it was, well established, but very low technology levels. So brought the place kicking and screaming into the 21st century. And so far, so good.
Nice. So I think this is a really interesting mix because Brandon, you're in a smaller shop. Jake,
Yes,
you were in a smaller shop going to a bigger shop. I'm just on the other side of that transition from being in a smaller shop, and now I'm kind of like getting my sea legs under me and kind of getting this figured out. You know, Thomas, you're a coach for ShopFix. What are you seeing as the number one challenge in workflow for shops, right? Because you kind of started with a fairly big shop. You started with a fairly big operation, and you see a lot of these shops make this transition over. What are you seeing the challenges that they face?
So honestly, in my personal opinion, it's muscling. It's like what you mentioned earlier, which is everything is in your head.
Yeah.
It's your workflow is your brain. And unfortunately, you cannot scale that. So in order to do that, you have to be able to lose control of your operation, lose control of all of the things that you ultimately are very task driven individual, typically when you're in that employee mindset. And then you have to transition from employee mindset to then manager mindset and then ultimately to owner mindset. Right. And so
Yes.
I think honestly, the biggest issues that we saw, and I saw this, I mean, dude, I had to fire myself off my front counter.
Yeah,
I was the
dude.
same way because I was like, bro, first off, you're not outselling me, number one. And then number two, I realized that for me, success needed to become hiring somebody who was smarter than me, who had more abilities to sell than me. That needed to be success so that I could then focus on the ownership duties of the shop. But yeah, I mean, when we scaled our operation, we started obviously in a 3-bay horse barn. And then we built our shop in 2019 in a commercial location. It was 8 bays. And then in 2023, we scaled that an additional 4,500 feet and added an additional 7 bays to 15 bays.
Right.
And when we did that, we had to increase car count. And what does that do? Increase chaos.
Yes.
And it increases chaos because it broke our processes.
Amen,
And
buddy.
so then we have to fix that.
That's exactly where I was, right? And so what I found is like I had a perfect Singer sewing machine and things were working like they were supposed to, and it was smooth and it was ironed out. And then I moved. And a couple of things happened. One is that I determined like, with this many cars, I can't process this much information. I can't process this much data. And it was super unhealthy, right? Because like I had put all of that weight on myself, and I remembered every single car and where it was in the process and what I was waiting on. And now all of a sudden I have a whole lot more cars. And it's like, this is like making me physically ill. I'm waking up in the middle of the night, freaking out, going like, oh crap, I forgot one, you know? And you say something that really resonates because I was making a reel the other day and I was looking into particular facets of business management. And this term came up on my screen as I was searching a particular topic, and it was called founder syndrome. You ever heard of founder syndrome?
Yep.
And dude, I'm telling you, I just didn't know there was a name for it. But so much of what you said, I was trying to be everything in the shop. And at some point I had to recognize like, hey, I've got to let go. And I think for me, the biggest thing was the discomfort of letting go, because it is not comfortable. If you remember Tim Kite, what he always said was, he said, productive discomfort, it is both very productive and it is very uncomfortable at the same time. Sometimes it's got to be there. Jake, what are you finding? Are you kind of in that same spot where you're making this transition over and it is not working like you thought it was going to?
Yes. Yeah. So one of the big things is I get overwhelmed with the amount of cars that are on the screen at any given time. And feel like, just like you, we end up forgetting stuff. It's one of the things I hate the most is a customer that calls and says, hey, what's going on with my car? I want to make sure that we're over communicating, that we're always on top of, giving them updates through the process of, hey, the inspection's done, it's going to estimates, and then here's your inspection, and then calling them, and then following up after that too, not just, through the sales part, but making sure that the work is done in a timely manner, the customer's updated. If we're waiting on parts, that they know that, hey, we're dead in the water for 2 days, and then we'll have parts and we'll update you, and not just saying, hey, we'll call you when it's done.
Yeah, very much same kind of thing in that transition of where I ran into troubles. And I'm going to share some things in a minute. Brett, what about you? Like, you came into this, bought the shop, brought the technology up. What have you found as far as scheduling and the workflow in your shop? What have you found the biggest challenges to be?
Well, the transition was probably the biggest thing for us because we were still working. When I bought the place, we were on an older system. If anybody's familiar with CoStar, it's mostly a tire-based system. I mean, even then, the previous owners weren't using it to its full potential. There were things in CoStar that Shop-Ware has, as far as in inventory and even communications, integrations with parts suppliers, yada yada. But like I said, it was an easy transition because I was new. And I had been listening to podcasts like this, over the previous couple of years leading up to it. Shop-Ware was one that stuck out to me, so we brought that in. And it's been really since June of 23, even up until now, we're still migrating little bits of Shop-Ware in just so it's not this shock to everybody.
Yeah.
I had a good buy-in from the technicians right away. But the front end staff was the more challenging part, just because one of my service advisors was 72 years old. Oh, wow. So yeah, and he was struggling really hard. And I think what helped the most is when we went completely paperless. Mm-hmm. We were doing writing work orders in when the customers would come in, writing everything down on a sheet and putting it on a waterfall rack and a workflow chart and passing stuff out. But the meld between the computer and the paper just wasn't working. There's information on one that wasn't on the other, and so forth. So right around October, November last year, we just no paper. And we've never looked back. Don't even miss it. It's great. So it's just service advisors for me have been more of the challenge because I'm not saying you need to be a technician or technical wizard when it comes to computers, but you do need to be able to read the screen, point things out, understand. If you see something you don't understand, you need to be able to ask a question. And I'm really comfortable with computers, but so I'm training the front end staff to really use that. Same thing, CRMs. Never had a CRM before. So brought that aboard, went through 3 in the last year and a half. Oh, wow. So yeah, just wasn't happy with the results. So I'm good now. We're with Auto Ops and Steer.
Yes.
Working out well for us, very well. I really, really like Auto Ops. That has been a godsend. But anyway, as far as workflows related, now that we're in a position where we can, like I said, no paper. We have a big TV in our dispatch area. My shop foreman is the dispatcher, so he basically anything in his job bin is ready to go out in the shop. That's queued up for the next thing. So we kind of use him as that jumping board. Yeah.
Right. Got you. Now I'm going to tell you something about switching and going completely paperless. And there is one downside that I never thought about. And the one downside is if I don't print a copy of the RO, doing RO audits is really tough. right?
Really?
Because I have to go. Yeah, I have to go to each individual one, and I have to open it, and then I have to look down the screen. I liked the paper because like I could grade it like a paper, and so I'd have like 10 or 15 of them sitting there, scribble on it, and sit down and go through it. That's the one downside. I will say that's a downside, but that's the only
screenshots and tablets are great for that. You got if you've got an iPad or something, like that's how I really worked with my website, is I was taking screenshots as my marketing team was working. I just take my pen and save the picture, and there's your paper.
That's a pretty cool concept. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Brandon, what about you? What are you finding as far as workflow? Have you had challenges that you've been facing with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm fortunate. I've surrounded myself with a bunch of like-minded shops with like you guys who are already a little bit farther ahead than us, so I can see the problems coming. So even though we're a smaller shop, I'm trying to do as much as I can to get off the front counter and not be as involved as I am. Right. So the dispatch process we made is now we have a lead technician who he looks at all the work coming in for the next day. He pre-dispatches it to what tech it's going to. And then we have our process throughout where it gets dispatched to that technician, and we have our promise times and making sure we're staying up to date with those customers. And that way I'm as little involved as possible. That way when I hop on something like this, or if I'm away at training, or if I'm trying to, focus on other back end of the shop stuff, it can run versus before it was, my phone would ring 6 times while I was on this with you guys, or I'd be at a training event doing stuff remotely versus now it can almost 90% of the way run on its own.
Right.
I'm with you on that, because that was a big one for me, is that it depended wholly on me, like I said. And so then when I wasn't there, things fell apart and it just didn't work. And I'll tell you something else is I've realized that the strategies that worked in 3 bays don't work in 10 bays. And, for years I listened to folks talk about, no, you can't do it like this. You have to do it like that. And I'm like, nah, man, if I did that like that, my shop would blow up. And I just looked at them and thought they were wrong. I never looked at the fact that, hey, they're not wrong. They're just different. They have a different environment. They have a different shop. It works differently than my shop. And so one of the big things for me is over the past couple of months, RO ownership is probably the biggest thing that gets me. When I was in 3 bays, if somebody got tied up, if somebody got behind, guess what? I only have 2 other technicians. I've got to move that work. It can't sit there for 2 weeks waiting on this guy to get through this huge problem he's got. I've got to move it. And so I was acting as an expediter, and I was taking stuff and moving it over here, moving it over there. Well, the problem with that when you get into a bigger shop is now I'm taking that work and I'm moving it to somebody else. And guess what? We don't have that tight-knit group that we had. We're still really tight and we all talk and we all have a good time, but it's very different because we don't have the time to talk about every single job that we're on because we're working on more jobs. There's more throughput. And so now Tech B takes Tech A's job. Guess what? He didn't read one thing on the ticket, or he changed one thing, or, the tech misdiagnosed it. Guess what? Now I've got a giant mess, and I'm trying to figure out whose fault it is. I'm trying to figure out how to clean it up and how to move it and what to do. And so I think RO ownership is a huge part of making a bigger shop flow. Thomas, what do you say to that? Is that something that you think is a viable concept?
Yeah, and I'll give you guys this spin on RO ownership. So not only is it, I think, incredible being on a software solution such as Shop-Ware from a shop management perspective. We migrated to them back in 2021. We were on Shop Boss prior to that, and Shop Boss, we just outgrew them as a company, and we were asking for things, and they were not able to provide them for us. But Shop-Ware did have the solution. We're fortunate to meet Monique. She's been incredible for us and has helped us scale to the capacity that we are today, right? So I would tell you this though, and I train my advisors, my front of the house nonstop on this. The front of the house owns the RO, hands down, no questions asked, right? As shop owners, it is our job to make the phone ring and make people show up. It's the advisor's job to then get all of the information on customer intake and then get the story to set the technician up for success. It's the technician's job then to multi-point properly, to look over the vehicle, put all the findings on the ticket and recommendations. And then it's the advisor's job to educate and inform the client. And it's the client's job to say yes or no. And at the end of the day, what we start to see is that technicians begin to run the shop. Yeah. And when technicians begin to run the shop, it does not work. Yeah. The technicians work for the advisors, period. And if it doesn't work, if you do not have that culture embedded in your operation, it is going to crumble. Technicians do not call the shots in my operations.
Well, what do you mean by
the
that?
advisors call the shots.
What do you mean? Give me an example of a technician running the shop.
So as in they either are wanting certain type of work, they are only recommending certain things, they are not okay with you taking their work, even though they cannot facilitate meeting the customer's demand and the customer's needs from a realistic expectation perspective, right? So, and it's not us just being tools and saying, hey bro, you're too slow, I'm taking your work, which is literally, in his mind, I'm taking food off his family's table. Right?
Yeah.
Because they're flat rate technicians. So, but it's my advisor saying, hey guys, you are the customer service advocate. You have the relationship. The technician doesn't know the timelines. The technician doesn't, that's not their responsibility. Your responsibility is to dispatch effectively to the technicians to set them up for success. And this is where utilizing Shop-Ware's schedule has helped us tremendously, but then also utilizing what we call the board, right? Which is a physical board that shows basically everything through magnets, and we transform everything and we move. The advisors are responsible for moving magnets all across the board to show where it is. And we keep that in sync electronically. And then all of our technicians have computers, so they all can see what their bay looks like, how many hours they have and things of that nature, and what their responsibilities are for that day so they can move forward with that. But I would say from a scaling perspective, simplicity scales and complexity fails. And in that notion, if you can have processes and procedures that are inline, efficient, and everyone in your organization understands how it operates, that is the only way that you are going to be able to scale to that magnitude. I mean, we do almost 600 cars a month and north of almost 700 grand in sales. That is moving a lot. And I'm not saying that just to boast or brag or any of that. I don't care about that crap. First of all, top line revenue means nothing to me. Yeah. But at the end of the day, in order to do that, you have to operate really efficiently, or else you are going to be the comeback special.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
I won't disagree with you at all in that sense. And you know, I'm going to tell you this, and it's something, I'm going to derail us here, but it's something that I've seen a lot of shops go through. It's something that I've been through, especially when we're in this environment where there's not a lot of technicians available or technicians on the market. One of the things that you find is, especially guys who come from the dealer, and I'm not saying anything bad about dealer techs. We just hired a dealer tech, and we are having a hard time getting to know each other because he brings those habits that came from the dealer. And it's like, hey, dude, I'm here to make hours, and I've got this, and he has this like preconceived notion of what it is, of how the shop's supposed to run, and he's in his head trying to put himself into this shop that doesn't run like the dealer ran, right? Because we're a slower pace shop. We spend more time per car. I think we're like 6.5 hours per RO right now is where we're at, and so we spend a lot more time per car, but we have much bigger tickets. And I'm like, dude, if you're trying to slam cars in and out here, you are going to kill your hours, because that's just not how we've configured this shop. Now, I've considered at some point in the future, maybe I buy a shop that's a higher volume, faster, with a lower hour per RO and lower average repair order. But like, this shop was built and has the clientele that does this. And so when we see a technician that comes in, training them and bringing them into the system, you know, when we brought Shop-Ware in, I was having a really hard time with it. And Monique and Carolyn set me down and they said, listen, you are trying to make your shop process work in Shop-Ware. You need Shop-Ware's process in your shop, because then the two work together. You can't put your workflow into Shop-Ware. You have to use Shop-Ware's workflow. Oh, crap. That makes a lot of sense, right? And I've said that all the time. But it's the same thing when we bring people into our business. They have to learn our workflow. And I don't think that shops have been very good at training workflow, right? When we talk about training, what do we always talk about? We talk about technician training for technical ADAS alignments, whatever it is. We're talking about the physical doing the work. We don't ever talk about soft skills. We don't ever talk about like, hey, this is how we do things here. And so I think that's something that's missing. Jake, how are you training as you make this transition and change your workflow? Because that was my big thing, right? Like, I had it in my head how we were going to do it, but getting it from in my head to on paper or on the workflow boards, because, you know, just like Thomas, I use a workflow board in the shop, but it changed when we moved into the bigger shop. Jake, how are you implementing this changeover as you make the switch?
Lots of meetings, discussions, writing processes, and covering them as a team. So whenever I write a process, I print it out. When we eat lunch, we we all read over it. We give input if anything needs to be altered, and then we do like some application. So we'll go through and actually like walk through the steps together. And right now, I have daily, weekly, monthly checklists for the technicians and the customer advocate to go through and make sure that they're hitting all the steps necessary. And that's the best way that we get buy-in, is by all doing it together. So even the stuff that I build for the customer advocate, the technicians are reviewing it and giving input on, so that we're moving forward as a team.
Gotcha.
So everybody understands all the steps of the process.
Gotcha. Okay. So, Brett, let me ask you same question, because I think it's important, because Thomas brought some heat right there, brought some really good perspective. What are you doing to train your team and get your team in alignment with your workflow? Because, I mean, it's one thing to say I have a workflow, and it's one thing to say I have a workflow board. It's another thing to get them to buy into it and actually do it. What's your process for that?
So I guess if you're focusing on, we'll say, a new employee, which is probably the easiest way to do it, because they're coming in with ideally a blank slate in terms of how we operate. So that, we've had, nice thing is we've had 2 or 3 apprentices hired in the last 6 months. So that was a perfect example. So we don't just say, here's your job, go do it. It was, they spend at least a couple days with another tech, basically just following, or at least a shop foreman kind of walks them through the process to start. Like, so you go in, like the technicians will do the check-ins, I guess, we'll get the kilometers. We do a video walk around just to make sure there's nothing damaged, or, we don't get called on something. So we walk them through the process for the first week, essentially, of the employment. And then from there, it's really just following the routine of everybody else. We've had no pushback. To be fair, I don't have any technicians that have recently come from the dealerships. They're all aftermarket guys. I got one guy who's from dealerships before, but he was here before I got here, so I don't know how that transition came in. And so everybody adopts really well. Even like I got my best diagnostician, 65 years old. He adopted everything as I asked it to be done. We have our weekly staff meetings. That's the big thing, I think, that really turned things around. I have a disdain for staff meetings. I used to run a Napa store. I had 30 plus people, and I hated staff meetings. So because it became a 3-hour endeavor. So we do it every week now. We run through what went well, what didn't go well. And honestly, we don't have a lot of things that need to be improved upon because of these meetings. We're actually at a point now where it's just like, okay, well, now this technician's having this issue. We need to just have those one-on-one conversations now. So it's that helped a lot. Those weekly staff meetings have been phenomenal. And write everything down. Paper, documents, standard operating procedures.
On paper, it's a lie. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, 100%. There were nothing written down when I got here. We didn't even have an employee handbook. Right. So put all that stuff in, and we've had really good success with it as far as employee buy-in to the process. Right.
Yeah. Gotcha. And look, I'm going to tell you, brought up Napa. I don't know if you've seen any of this yet, but and I don't know that they're doing it up there, but I've been working and talking with them about this new technician tool rebate. And it's basically something that gives your technicians a certain amount of purchasing power that doesn't, it's like a rebate that helps them buy new tools. And it's all about giving back to the technician. It doesn't cost you more, man. It is phenomenal. You bring up the dealer tech thing, right? So I think it's important to share what we were going through with that is when he came in, his thing is, all right, so every car, it gets a brake fluid exchange, it gets a fuel induction service, it gets a tire rotation. I need to recommend spark plugs on everything. And I'm like, I'm over here freaking out. I'm like, whoa. Like, hold up. You trying to rip my clients off? He's like, no, dude, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm like, what do you mean that's what you're supposed to do? He's like, that's what I was trained to do. I was trained that you recommend all these things on every car. What? Like, nah, dude, we don't do that here, right? And so it's been hard to like train that out and navigate through that and pull that back.
Yeah.
Brandon, you listen to these guys who have really got it figured out and really taken things to the next level with these bigger shops. What are your thoughts? What are you thinking about as you hear them talk?
So a lot of it's I've heard it a lot before, and it's all recently. I'm not going to act like I've been doing it forever. Recently, like past couple months, like implementing that stuff. And the weekly meetings is probably the most powerful thing with the processes, because if you can write as many SOPs as you want. If you don't have a meeting about it and you just send it in an email or put it on their toolbox, they're not going to follow it. And so we have a meeting every Friday. And even that in the beginning, it was kind of rough to get through, and it felt like a long, drawn out, staff meeting. And then it needed a lunch meeting process that we follow. And every meeting we go over what went good, what went bad, old process that we need to review, where do we have room for a new process, and then just check equipment, tools, stuff like this. Okay, anybody got anything else? And there's a process, and it takes about 45 minutes on the dot for us to get through our meeting. There's a spokesperson in the meeting, and then there's a note taker for the meeting, so everything's tracked and on top of. And that's probably the most valuable thing that I've got from what it sounds like you guys have been doing for a while that we just recently started to implement.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Hey,
You have a different person every time that takes over your meetings? Like, do you have, like, my shop foreman runs my meetings, so do you pick and choose, like, someone different every time to run your meetings, Brandon?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
There'll be a new note taker and a new spokesperson every meeting.
Okay.
The person who, like, I'll usually write the meeting every time, far as like what our KPIs for the last week, what our goals were, if we hit our goals, stuff like this. And like, so there'll be 3 lines at the top of the meeting sheet: who wrote it, who's presenting it, and who's the note taker. And so I'm usually the one who builds the meeting, but other than that, anyone can. And it made it again something else I was able to take off my plate and put on, the team to be like, look, you guys can do this. Here's the outline. Here's to follow it. And the effectiveness of the meeting is practically the same as if I was running it.
Right.
Nice. That's good.
I'm going to tell you something. We started using Otter AI to record our morning meetings, because what we found with that is that when we recorded them like that, there wasn't that little flare of personal perspective. And so it just recorded it straight out, and then it dropped bullet points. And if you say to it, hey, Bob, your actionable item is, it will say Bob's actionable item. And so I've really enjoyed doing that. Now, I do things a little bit different, and I want to hear your guys' perspective and see what you think. Because the way that we do this is the night before, when we're getting ready to close up, about 30 minutes before, somewhere in there, we pull the team, or we'll pull the foreman, and we'll go over tomorrow's schedule. And we'll talk about what work we have here, what's sold, what's getting ready to come in, what do we have parts for, right? And begin to kind of get a formula for where we're at. And then the manager takes that and he begins to lay it out, and he gets it set up to where everybody knows. Now, the reason that we do this the night before, right, is because what he'll do is he'll go through the list and make sure we have all the parts, make sure we have the right oil. Do you know how many cars have showed up in my shop that's a BMW or Mercedes-Benz or a Range Rover, and we don't have the right oil for it? You want to talk about embarrassing, telling somebody it's going to take 2 days to do their oil change because we didn't have the oil for it, right? Like, that sucks. And so it helps kind of navigate some of that. Then the next morning, what we do is we come in and we have sheets that we hand out to everybody. So every morning, about 10, 15 minutes, we give a sheet out and we talk about, hey, Bob, here's your workflow for the day. Now, if something goes wrong, and I learned this from Dutch, because he talks all the time about aviation. And one of the things he said, we always have a pre-flight briefing. Why do we have a pre-flight briefing? Well, because we don't want to be stressed out trying to figure out what to do when something went wrong while we're taking off or we're in the air, because it's a high stress environment. Let's take the stress out of it. Let's get to the point that we all know where we're going next. So I'll go down that list and say, hey, listen, if Mrs. Smith is not here at 8 o'clock, don't stress it. Move on to your next one, whoever is here next. Hey, if none of your appointments show up, in that rare case, I need you to jump to this and move to this. So we've already laid out where you go if something goes wrong. And we talk about specifics of some jobs. So the foreman will say, hey, listen, that car's a LV brake fluid car. You need to be careful about, if we're going to do a brake fluid exchange, let's figure out, can we do it? Is it something that's in our wheelhouse, etc.? So now we've kind of taken some of the rough stuff off the edges. And then as we get the day started, that advisor or that manager is laying the day out in workflow. So the advisors work in workflow, the techs work in my work screen. And so they'll go through and they'll lay everybody's work out and they'll have it all laid out to where they can see what's here. We're added employees. And so the added employees are waiting on parts, waiting on auth, waiting on dispatch. And like I think there's one or two others up there. So we can move cars into those categories while we're waiting on specific things, and we can see it on the workflow board so we don't lose the car. It's always got a place that it's supposed to be. And so the advisor is going to move things and put them where they're supposed to be. Now, if there's something that happens, we have two-way radios in the shop. If there's something happens, Miss Adams comes in. Hey, I have to have my car by 11 a.m. Okay, I had you number 3 on the list. I've got to move, right? I'm going to have to move this over here, put this over here, or I have to reset expectations. And because of the pre-prepared plan, we know where we can move and where we go. Is that how you guys are doing this? Is that a reasonable? And Thomas, I'll start by asking you that. Do you think that's a reasonable way to do it?
Yeah. So we do. We typically will do a huddle before we leave, and then we also do a morning huddle. And that's how we're doing that. Now, on top of that, you were talking about training earlier. You have to make training a lifestyle. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a small shop. It doesn't matter if you're a large shop. It doesn't matter if you have 100 stores or 2 stores. It doesn't matter. Training has to be a lifestyle. We train in front of the house 3 days a week. And on a number of different things. I'm personally the one training. It's 7 a.m. to 7:45 a.m. We open at 8, and we train for 45 minutes 3 days a week. And I am just like pounding information into these guys' heads. And it takes iteration after iteration, repetition after repetition to finally get a desired result. And we are getting the desired result, but it is taking a ton of time. And it's not that my front counter staff is just, not trying, or they're not listening, or they're not trying to learn. I mean, they're coming in on their time. They're 100% commission paid employees. They do not get paid for training. They're coming in on their time, because if I'm willing to invest my time as long as they're willing to invest in themselves. And if they're not willing to invest in themselves, I'm not willing to invest my time into them. And that's how we operate as a culture. But from your perspective on making sure that everyone is in lockstep, that is super important. I don't know how you guys operate, because being a single large store, it's very difficult for one person to run the store. Yeah. So we have a front of the house manager and a back of the house manager. Essentially, we have a lead service advisor and a shop foreman. They are in lockstep, and they're the ones doing the huddle with the guys. And then they are ultimately in charge of dispatching the tickets. And to your point, we use two-way radios as well. Highly recommend that for anybody with large shops, especially because running to the back of the shop is not a realistic, ask. And also, my advisors probably have 20,000 steps a day from, the amount of walking around that they do. We also don't do seats. We don't do chairs in our operations. So that is whenever we were having people sitting down in chairs, we were not moving efficiently and effectively enough. So our guys stand up and they walk around and they run around. But if we have Miss Jones come in and ask for a specific favor, then that gets radioed to the back, and then we will move magnets accordingly and dispatch electronically accordingly, just the same that you were talking about. But the beautiful thing about that is Shop-Ware allows for that to happen. Yes. And it allows for that to happen very efficiently and effectively, especially with the notes transfer back and forth, and then the log feature that allows for anybody to go in and be able to see exactly where the communication's at.
Absolutely. And bang on right there, because that's exactly what we do. Especially if we have a hiccup or we have something come up, we can go back and we figure out where did it go wrong, right? Because it's not perfect and it's never going to be perfect. But if we can at least go back and start to minimize issues by figuring out where did we misstep somewhere? What was the problem? How did we miss this? And it allows us to go back and see that and begin to, because in some ways, your shop's a lot like a car. We've got to diagnose the issues within the shop, and we can't just say it doesn't work and I don't know why. No, you need data to be able to do that. And I don't know why, as shop owners, we miss that. It's like a lot of us were technicians first. And we just released a podcast. Poor Tanner Markham, right? I'm going to pick on him. But he's always making these really rambunctious and just absolutely off the wall decisions. He's like, the shop's not working right. I'm going to lower my prices 50%. What? Where did you come up with that? I don't know. I just feel like it's the thing to do. It's impulsive. Tanner, what the hell? Right? And so I see shop owners do that all day long. And if you can slow down and pull data in and make decisions based on data within your facility, and Shop-Ware gives you the tools to be able to do that, right? Especially if your guys are clocking in and out. Because if they will clock in and out on those tickets, you can learn a lot. And one of the things that we do is we have accountability. I don't care how much testing you want to do on your ticket, right? If you need more testing, I don't care. Tell me, I'll sell you whatever you need, because we do really high-end diag and we work on things that are very complex. And so it's not uncommon to have 6 hours of testing on something. You just need to tell me. And so one of the rules in the shop is when you start your ticket, the first thing that you do is you drive it for your multi-point, or what we call a peace of mind. And so they have to call in on the radio and say, on the road. And it's a two-way thing, right? First of all, it means that somebody knows that technician left the parking lot. If they break down and they're somewhere they don't have cell phone service, we all know they were on the road. So if they don't show up in a few minutes, somebody knows, hey, I better call and check on them, make sure they're okay. Second thing is it reminds the advisor and the manager, hey, my guy's starting his first one. It's 9:00 right now. I need to hear from him by 10:30, right? And it's just a reminder. And so they're supposed to radio when they get back, hey, back in the shop. And it helps keep kind of a pace, and it helps keep that communication moving. Jake, when you hear what Thomas was talking about, what do you think?
I think that, well, number one, I think we're a little bit inefficient. We got some areas we could improve. We use, instead of an extra employee like Lucas, we use the status labels on the jobs and the workflow screen. So the advisor operates out of the workflow screen and changes the status continually for waiting on parts, waiting on whatever. And then when that's the thing, they send it back to the technician queue. So a lot of times it looks like our technician has 24 hours worth of work to do in one day. Which often isn't the case. Because some of the jobs are waiting. Sometimes it is the case, and in that case, we have to move stuff around. But
I got to say this though, and you highlighted exactly why I added the other people, is because now I can look at workflow, and I know exactly how much money I've got waiting on parts. I know exactly where it's at. I know if my tech's overloaded, it gives me somewhere else to put that stuff. And you can use statuses, no problem. I'll tell you why I stopped using statuses. It's because when we change the status in Shop-Ware, it's connected to AutoFlow and it sends them a text message. And
you just gotta change the verbiage for it to not do that. It has to
maybe I do that.
Yeah. So it has to be the exact same verbiage. Like the letters all have to be the same, like capital.
I
and
wanted
all
to
that.
do it sometimes. There's just times that it would not be ideal to tell them your parts just arrived. Well, it's going to be 2 weeks before I can get my technician to it. I'm really sorry. That's a big job. It's going to get
Thomas, in your 600 car shop a month or whatever you said, do you have cars sit there for 2 weeks?
2 weeks. We have cars sit for several months sometimes. Just really depends on what it is, right? So we do, and I don't know how familiar you are with our business, but our big store, CDT Automotive, we do aftermarket stuff as well. So we do lifts, wheels, tires, we do transmissions, engines.
Okay.
We do all makes, all models. So like if I'm installing a built motor in something or a built transmission in something, it may have a 12-week lead time from time we purchase the engine or the trans before it's even shipped to us, and then we will then obviously work that into our workflow. But we are a same day service shop, and we are a yes shop.
So how do you deal with the downtime on, let's say, well, one, are you accounting for BS? So are you going off of book time, or do you have some kind of internal protocol to determine the amount of hours you're going to pay out for that particular engine swap or whatever? And then do you pad it? What do you do to deal with that?
So typically how we sell those jobs is we are of the, we want to make sure that we are promising as close as we can to those jobs, and we also have the technicians buy in on that. So naturally with aftermarket, it gets a little dicey. Book time typically is going to get you close, but it doesn't get you all the way. So from a padding perspective, some of the things that we will do is, if it is going to be a pretty hefty job like open heart surgery, on a vehicle. We will put in a miscellaneous line of X amount of dollars, and then we will true that up on what we actually spend, but we will make sure that we are prefacing that with the client up front and say, hey, listen, here's the deal. The very worst case scenario is your pricing is going to be X. We do have a buffer in, and we will actually map that out, but we will remove the miscellaneous item off of the list and just bill the parts that we actually, so the bill may actually decrease from that perspective. And then from a labor perspective, we want to make sure we set the precedent that it doesn't need to rise. The labor hours don't need to rise. They only need to fall. And so we try and do our best to get exactly on that. But obviously condition of the vehicle matters a lot, which is why we also are not big on quoting over the phone. We like the vehicle to be on site, on property, so that we can give a true estimate, something we can stand behind, and we can offer a warranty on that and give the customer the full story.
Yep. So is the technician looking at that car though, and rusty bucket 2006 Toyota Camry, you're putting an engine in, book time says 14 hours. That's book time. Let's say you add another 30% or whatever. So you're at 17, 18 hours now. The technician will come back to you and say, I need 21 hours. Are you saying, okay, we're going to run on 21 hours? Or are you like, okay, well, if I'm at 21 hours, this is going to be a no sale at all. So what are we doing here? Is it actually going to be 21 hours? Or are we just padding this just to be careful? Like, what are we doing? How do you kind of navigate some of those nuances?
So we empower our advisors. They own the RO, to my point earlier, right? And so this is how that works. The technician gets a say. Absolutely they do, right? However, it is all in presentation and delivery from the advisor to the client. If it becomes a no sale at 21 hours, guess what? I'm selling it at 18, and technician A, you're either doing it or I'm pulling it. And the customer is going to get taken care of. This isn't about you. This is about the client. And we have to do what's best for the client. So if I have technician B that's willing to do the job for 18 hours, because guess what? 18 hours is better than 0. And if they get tripped up on that 3 hours, as soon as I go to pull it from that technician, then they're not going to want that. They're going to say, oh, no, boss, man, honestly, dude, I really appreciate you getting the sale. I'll do it for 18 hours. I'll take one for the team. I'm like, perfect, man. I really appreciate that. That's how we navigate that. So yes, they do get a say. Now, sometimes they'll get it. Sometimes, hey man, I'm going to have to use a torch. I'm going to have to, heat up these bolts. It's going to take me an additional couple hours. Okay. Well, guess what? I may get it. Our advisors are 50% closers. They're going to get it 1 out every 2 times. But ultimately, when they don't, the technicians still have to have some skin in the game, because at the end of the day, that impacts the advisors too, because our technicians and our advisors are both on commission pay. And that is the only fair way to do it. Because I'm telling you right now, if I'm a technician and my advisor is not on commission pay, I'm not putting my family in your hands, because you are not going to match my speed and my work ethic, because you get paid whether we sell the job or not.
Jake, you were getting ready to say something. What were you getting ready to say?
Oh, that thought came and went. On incidental fees. We call it. We do something very similar. So we had just as a fee. So we call it an incidental, and we do inform the customer. Hey, we have an extra $1,000 in here, because when we take this apart, we don't know if a hose breaks. There's a plastic clip somewhere that we need to get. Any of that stuff. Yeah. So we try to give them the top price and only work down. One of our goals is never to have to call and say, "Oh, hey, we need more money." Yeah,
I would much rather
follow up.
Down.
Sorry, follow up question. To the incidentals, we do the same thing, especially on engines. Anything we know what's going to take a long time. How do you determine the number? Do you go percentage on?
We do 10%
total.
Yep.
You do 10%. Okay. Yeah. Just curious. Sometimes we say 500, sometimes we say 1,000, but
there's cases to where we've done more, or depending on what it is. If it's something to where we're looking at it, it's rusty, we know a lot's going to break. There's a million gaskets, and we believe we got them all, but we know there's going to be a couple that just weren't in the kit or weren't with this, and maybe we'll push it. But our typical standard in the process is 10%. And when it's presented to the customer, it's just told it's going to be X amount or less. And the reason we say or less is because there's a buffer built in. And the same thing Thomas and Jake said. But 10% is our standard.
So here's my thing with this, and this can vary a lot across multiple styles of shops, right? Thomas runs a very different shop than I do. And like in my shop's instance, right, we built a brand, we built a following of people who know they're coming to a shop that's more expensive than everybody else in town. It is about very high-end work that nobody else will do. And so we build a brand around that. So when they come through the door, they know and they expect that, hey, Lucas is going to be a little more expensive, but he's fair, right? Because if it's less, there's a lot of times I've come to this shop, I've approved a job, and when I came to pick it up, it was less than what they told me. So I know they're honest. I know they're going to be straight with me. But I also know that, hey, because of the complexity of the work that we do, I already have to build some of that in there. I'm about 10% is really where I fall. Now, if I was, Thomas, like you, and again, I'm not saying anything bad about the operation. Please don't take it that way. I'm just saying that, like, what I've learned is there's some huge variances on the type of shop you build, the clientele that you build in the shop, right? Like, and there's an advantage to being a cheap shop that moves a ton of cars and has this style set up. And Mark Pons, right? Chapel Hill Tire. And I, not a cheap shop by any means. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Mark runs a ton of volume through a bunch of shops, is a absolute elite operator. I have learned so much from that man, but he has a very different setup than I do. And if I brought his style of operation into my shop, man, my shop would fall apart tomorrow. But if I put my operation in his shoes, dude, it wouldn't work. And so I think it's very important to recognize what it is you're trying to accomplish.
You got to run your race, right?
Yeah.
You got to run your race. And there is no one size fits all model.
That's true.
There just isn't. So run your race and be the best operator that you can be.
Amen. Amen. Well, guys, I know we're out of time. In closing, does anybody have anything they'd like to add or anything you don't think we've covered? I'll take that as a no. All right, guys.
I got a question to the room, if you don't mind. Just because because we're dispatching basically right from as the jobs come up, as the technicians come up. Mm-hmm. And most of you guys, from what I'm hearing, you assign your technicians jobs before. And I don't know how that would work with us. So can you explain, like, how do you know that this technician is going to get this job done in this time, and this job over here is more of a priority? Or I guess how do you know to assign the jobs per technician?
So for us, that's part of that conversation the night before. Shop foreman's involved. Yeah. Usually the whole shop's involved. And so we're talking about, we've done a very, very good job with discovery with the client. What is your expectation? When do you need the car back by? What is it that we're taking care of? Do I have parts? Am I going to be able to get parts? Right? So all of those things are taken into account. And then I'm dispatching to strengths. So I know there's guys in my shop that are not going to handle a board level diag on a car that we can't get a PCM for, but I've got a guy that does. And so I know which job that guy's going to get. And then I also know who's getting my oil changes, and I know who's getting my brake jobs. My very first coach, he was very adamant. Oh, you don't want GSs. You want all high level technicians. I can see the advantage of that. But I also see that if I move enough tires and I get enough tire rebates and I get enough purchasing power with my tire dealer, I can make a lot more money on tires. And so I've built a system around what type of work we're doing and who's getting that work. That's how I do it. Thomas, what about you?
Yeah, so we, our stuff is very much probably similar to you, Lucas. Some of our jobs are predetermined, pre-scheduled, pre-sold even, right? Yeah. Some of that work. But then we also operate same-day service, and we operate all makes, all models, so kind of like a general service repair shop inside the same building. But we have 15 bays, which allows for us to handle the volume, right? So how we operate, though, we do operate with GS, and then we also operate with line technicians. Our GSs are hourly, our line technicians are flat rate. However, we require on a rotating assembly line, like a waitress or waiter in a restaurant, we make a physical mark on our board, and we rotate a technician's multi-pointing every single vehicle. And the reason why is because typically the people that we have working in Quick Lube, either A, they're not confident enough to make the recommendation, or they just don't understand, what it is. So what we're missing is average tech quote is dropping when we went to that model. And so now and guess what? We do not pay our technicians to multi-point. That is a service that they offer, and that is skin off their back. They work for free in that sense. However, if we do sell off of the rack, we dispatch that to that technician as long as they have the availability to do the job, to kind of give them the attaboy on that, right? So, but you mentioned auto ops. Think about auto ops. We can't prepare for that. We may get 5 appointments at 3 a.m. for 8 a.m. drop-offs or 8 a.m. waiter oil changes, right? So how we operate on those is those are just trial by fire. That's just in the weeds. But if we have a plan and we prepare the majority of our day, then it does reduce and eliminate the chaos that does come in from the stuff that we cannot plan for.
You know, Mike Allen told me, Thomas, he said that he was pretty sure that starting next week, you were going to be doing this rack attack thing and you were going to hire like 15 technicians just to do that. So I'm just curious to see, like, maybe we can follow up. I'm kidding. I'm not trying to get us all shot. Okay.
West.
Jake, what about you? What, you want to add any feedback to that?
Yeah, we use the scheduler, the calendar. We rely on that a whole lot. We drag windows and make notes in it so that we know kind of what time blocks we need to use. We do dispatch to strength. I have one guy that does diag. I have one guy that just excels at engine jobs. So you know, he did 2 this week already. Engine replacements, and he just bangs through them. So I make sure that those jobs are going to the proper technician at the intake. So, you know, when the customer calls and says, hey, my engine's telling me knock jokes, I'm putting it on that guy's schedule.
Right.
When somebody calls and says, hey, all the lights on my dash are on and the car won't start, I'm putting it on the other guy's schedule because I know that's where it needs to be. And then making sure that I block off enough time that we don't end up with 15 jobs in a 2-job kind of day.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Awesome.
Well, fellas, thank you so much for being here. I know we're out of time, and look forward to doing the next one.
All right.
Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Y'all take care.